Welcome to the Alien Scientist channel. I am your host, Jeremy Riss, and today we're going to be talking about some very interesting news. Ladies and gentlemen, it is happening. We couldn't be closer to 1984 than some of the things that are going through right now. This is a new documentary that just came out. I can't even find it right now.
Whether it returns to the
This is a PBS Frontline special just released this documentary here, and it's called United States of Conspiracy, full documentary, and it's very interesting what's going on in this country. I was warning about Alex Jones years ago. I kind of stopped paying attention to him. I didn't realize quite how large his audience had grown and what exactly had happened over the last 4 years. Other than that, he suddenly became like Rush Limbaugh, this right-wing, far-right kind of conspiracy nut that was just calling every event that ever happened under the sun a government inside job and a false flag and a conspiracy, and really not following through with solid investigations and doing more harm to the truth community and people who seek answers about government involvement in various world events and world-changing events in American history. But I warned about Alex Jones years ago. I talked about QAnon. I warned about QAnon years back and talked about them. I've taken down a lot of my videos on a lot of these subjects now because I'm starting to do a purge myself, because they're doing purges on content related to any conspiracies now. It's kind of crazy what's going on. It's like they're taking Alex Jones, like they propped up this conspiracy raving lunatic front man to kind of be like the face and head of to show people in the public.
We got the TSA putting their hand down people's pants. Infowars.com covers it all. We've got the banks bankrupting the U.S.
Spreading wild conspiracy theories had made Jones a celebrity.
So this film is just I know it's only got 68,000 views, but this is what I'm seeing on the news media. I don't really watch a lot of mainstream news, but sometimes every once in a while, like today and the past week, they've had it on where I've been around and working. So I've been listening to this, what's going on in the media and what's going on out there in the news. And they're not even reporting on the real stories of what's happening in America. It's like you literally have to go to alternative news channels to even find out what's going on. They're talking about troops at the U.S. Capitol until March, and they say, well, why are they going to be there till March? And they're pretending they don't know what's going on and aren't they're not talking about like these other groups and these threats and insurrections. And a lot of this stuff, I believe, was designed and organically, the FBI has a notorious history of propping up FBI domestic terrorists. Okay. Numerous cases of domestic terrorism in the FBI is FBI agents who go around on the internet and start groups, hate groups basically, and political groups, or join political groups and then become informants on them or investigators from within these groups. So a lot of these groups form online and online chat groups and on social media, and the FBI will actually go in, they'll buy these people guns, prop them up with bombs and a whole plot to go do this whole plot that they design and think up and give to them, and then they'll bust the people on their way to go do the plot and pretend like it's this big organic terrorist and domestic terrorist threat. And this has happened in a couple cases that have been documented. There's the five. There was these 5 people on one occasion. So there are some truth to like government plots involving conspiracies and stuff, as Jones talks about, but like he rants and raves and just screams at the top of his lungs at these reporters about this stuff, and it just makes it look like nonsense, and he mixes a lot of nonsense and other stuff in. So I feel like his whole mission in this whole global public scene was to basically it's almost like they contrived this whole thing with the past 4 years with the Trump administration about an outsider getting in, which really wasn't an outsider. He's a billionaire actor. He's a he's a reality TV show star. The guy works in reality TV, and for the last 4 years, he played the president on TV and Twitter mostly. But this film it really sends shivers down my spine for what the future holds in store for the future of conspiracy. Because now, if you go online and search for this conspiracy theories and stuff, there's a host of articles you can find about the dangers of conspiracy theories. Look up conspiracy theories and the word dangerous. Okay, just type in conspiracy theories dangerous. Here's an article, November 16th, Why Conspiracy Theories Are More Dangerous Than Ever. Conspiracy theories, why beliefs like QAnon flourish. And then, the danger of powerful conspiracy theories. So all this stuff was being reported in the mainstream media in September, October, November, December, up until the lead up to the events that happened in January. It's very, very peculiar and very interesting because I haven't really paid much attention to the political theater as much as I have to what's going on in the deep state and the real deep state, not the deep state that these QAnon tards talk about, but the real powers that be that, people like I tried to talk to Jordan Sather about and send him information on, my research into, CIA drug dealing and the history of the people that killed Kennedy and the groups within the government, like the Bush family and their ties to organized crime and intelligence. So I tried sharing some of that information with those people. They weren't interested. They were only interested in right-wing conspiracy theories that made all the Democrats look bad and made all these conspiracies look like just a left-wing thing, that they don't happen on the Republican Party too and the right wing. But in any case, they happen on both sides of the field. I've gotten a lot of hate on Twitter and other platforms because people are still stuck in that partisan politics system, and they haven't realized that big money and big power really owns all sides of government from behind the scenes. And anyways, let's get on to, I want to talk about Bigelow. I keep showing this up on the screen. It's one of my windows, and I wanted to talk about this and stuff. But Biden, I'm really scared, man. I've been taking a lot of my videos down because I really feel like they're going to do a purge soon, and I don't want to get targeted for my content, even though I don't think I will, because my content doesn't incite hate and violence. It doesn't, and it also just is more informative and about factual investigations and stuff, rather than, I rejected the Israel did 9/11 stuff. The people that say this is all Jews and Zionists that control everything from behind the scenes and ignore other big money players on the table in favor of that kind of a message. But anyways, Bigelow, let's talk about Bigelow and Bob Bigelow, what's going on with this. So as some of you may know, Knapp's been he's been under a lot of pressure with the Bob Lazar story, getting attacked on all fronts for the credibility of Bob Lazar and why he still promotes the story and hasn't really fully done even though he's done the research that kind of, he knows the case really well, and he's done all the research that he could expose Bob if he wanted to, but why does he continue to keep promoting Bob and keep the facade up? These pictures that we got of Papoose Dry Lake showing, this, he showed there's so many differences between what Bob Lazar said and reported about this facility at Papoose Lake and the evidence that we have here. And of course, now a lot of these skeptics, real hardcore believers of Bob, I wouldn't dare call them skeptics, I call them hardcore believers, will still insist that they bulldozed this entire area and removed the underground base and got rid of it, and that it was all right here, actually up to the side of the lake. Bob's Mountain goes right up to the side of the lake, but as we see from these pictures, these new high definition photographs of Papoose Lake and the surrounding area, there's no possible way that there was a sub-secret base there, which housed a secret compartment for alien ET research. Not that this sort of thing doesn't exist, and I've been doing tons of research into Roswell, how the materials from Roswell were transported to Wright Field, and looked at by some Beetle metallurgists and scientists, and that how sometime in the 60s, I believe, they were moved out of the facility at Wright Field. And that underground facility eventually was turned into Wright State Campus. So there's a lot of controversy with that and the research involved in that. But I feel like the pressure has been up on Knapp because of these new pictures and because of all the documented science and stuff that I've been putting out and my reports and my research that is, well researched and leads people to real good scientific information. I think they're realizing that this Bob Lazar fraud story is falling through and falling apart. And so I believe that Knapp is calling on old friends of his to try to, to hold this story together any way they possibly can at this point. And this is pretty pathetic. This guy, I just listen to this.
And stuck to his stories and or what kinds of things could I find that were not legit to test, to do something for about 4 months in that business. And so I had opportunities to test him.
Yeah, he talks about testing Bob Lazar, this whole interview. So for those of you who don't know who Robert Bigelow is, he's an American businessman. He owned a hotel chain called Budget Suites of America, and I think he owned Bigelow Tea Company as well, although I've heard that. I think that's a rumor, though. I think he's pretty much a billionaire from properties and hotels and hotel chains and stuff. But he's not a scientist. He doesn't really know science very well. He was really involved in UFOs and UFO research. I have an old picture of him. He used to fund a lot of Linda Moulton Howe's research into cattle mutilations. For about 10 years, he funded her and paid her rent so she could research cattle mutilations and write investigative reports on the cattle mutilations and stuff. Which in the movie Mystery Men, they later found out that she was actually being used as this mainstream, because she was a respected and well-known mainstream reporter in the ufological circles, and that she was actually being fed disinformation to cover up a whole slew of government activities that involved, underground nuclear tests, and they were kidnapping cattle and cutting out the thyroid glands to measure the uptake of radioactive isotopes of iodine in the cattle, so that they could monitor nuclear levels above ground after this nuclear test that they had done, and that they had used her and UFOs and aliens as a cover for why they were mutilating these cattle. And they were saying, oh, aliens were doing it, and they'd pick up these bodies and drop them out of helicopters and do all kinds of weird stuff and harvest other organs to throw these, and they used, I believe that this was an operation that was being conducted by the military, and that Bigelow was playing Linda Moulton Howe the entire time. Not Bigelow, but not necessarily Bigelow himself, but the organizations that surround Bigelow. Because as we know, Bigelow is connected to Bigelow Aerospace. Bigelow Aerospace has all the UFO and MUFON reports. So when the Air Force stopped, taking their UFO reports, they said they're going to give them all to Bigelow now, because he's the guy who's interested in Bigelow. In these UFO reports. So none of the UFO reports go to the military. All the UFOs that are reported to the military go directly to this man here, who kind of essentially is in cooperation with the government entities to control a lot of the narrative on UFOs. So it's no surprise that we see him posing here with George Knapp and lying through his teeth about saying things about Bob Lazar that are completely just not true, as we know from by facts. Let's examine some of these things.
Talk about that a little bit.
I never viewed Bob as being a fraud, as to Area 51 and all of that. I spent a certain amount of time in conversations with him. We put a little bitty business together and tried to do something for about 4 months in that business. And
okay, so he put a business together for about 4 months. That business was called the Zeta Reticuli 2 program. They don't talk about this or mention it anywhere. They just assume, if it's for the people that already know about this and it's to shut them up and not give the people who don't know any more information, and just give them a story that kind of goes along with the bullshit that they already believe, so they won't begin to question the lies that they've been told by these counterintelligence agents, and begin to see the truth. So anyways, this is the SS4 application. Let's go to the second part of this. I want to bring this up. This was a business agreement that was started in December 31st of 1990, or 1989. This was like right after Bob Lazar came out, maybe, or within a year of it. It says 1/24/90, and Bob Lazar literally came out with this story in May 1989. You see, when he came out as Dennis the year before, and then in October is when he first came out with his face, his real name, Robert Scott Lazar, October of 1989, and that's when he first talked about the element 115, and which I later proved that he got that whole element 115 story from the May 1989 issue of Scientific American magazine, which you can download a copy of and look up on page number 68 or 67. Yeah, you can find the this article by Peter Armbruster and Gottfried Munzberg on creating super heavy elements, which mentions element 115, element 114, shows them on the island of stability here with that neutron number of 184 that Bob Lazar tried to use in another interview. We have him recorded saying that 184, or it's on his website, I forget. But regardless, we've traced down where he got his intelligence, where he got the scientific information on element 115 from. It was from a magazine, and these are the physicists that worked on it. They know nothing about Bob Lazar. They know nothing about him or any of his work. But the real story that I heard was that Bob Lazar, Gene Huff, and this Pamela Bauscher woman, I'm not sure too much about her, but apparently they jumped in on this business contract and got this employer business contract deal called Zeta Reticuli 2, which he hired Bob Lazar and gave him like $2 million or something in funding to build a particle accelerator to make element 115 for him. Now, we know about that particle accelerator from the Bob Lazar hydrogen car video. If you look up the hydrogen car video, you can't find any of these videos now. Oh, there it is. You can find this. It's hard to find them. You have to type in stuff. So he talks about future technology, and this is the one where he lies and he says that lithium hydride is completely safe and that it's a government conspiracy to call it dangerous so that we don't have access to free energy technology, which is a blatant lie. You can look up the MSDS safety data sheet on lithium hydrides and see that it's very dangerous. And this simple high school chemistry experiment, and these false engineering specs that he gives us on this, including the statement that he made the element 115. I mean, he made the lithium hydride for his tanks, his hydrogen fuel tanks. He made that lithium hydride in his particle accelerator, which he shows off at this part.
The reason you can't is because
it's a weapon material.
Yeah, it's a weapon material. Sure. Yeah, this is bullshit. This particle accelerator that I was allegedly built by Bob Bigelow to build element 115 for him, and that it never worked or turned on or did anything. It was all just a fraud, a front. And the real story that I heard was that Bob Bigelow hired a couple physicists to come in and step into the program and test Mr. Bob Lazar on his physics knowledge to, verify his claims that he was, in fact, employed as a senior staff physicist at Area 51, as he claimed he was. And those claims turned out to be false when the physicists that Bigelow hired onto the program tested Lazar and found that he couldn't even solve simple basic differential equations through separation of variables, and realized that he was not a physicist, and then he was quickly let go because of that, but not after 4 months of getting a lot of money out of Bigelow, which he used to build a particle accelerator and of course start his business called United Nuclear, which United Nuclear Scientific Corporation, which is what Bob Lazar uses for shipping you know, it originally started earlier than the 80s, and in the late 80s, his company started as a way to get explosives for his Desert Blast Festival. He was getting ammonium nitrate and saltpeter. But anyways, this is
business together, and tried to do something for about 4 months in that business. And so I had opportunities to test him, like
and he did
you
test
would,
him.
like anybody would, you know, and see if
Just
he
like
repeated
John
the same
Testers of
thing
John
and
Andrews
stuck
of
to his
Testers
stories,
Corporation.
and or what kinds of things could I find that were not legitimate. And I didn't find much.
I didn't find much.
I wouldn't say
he's
it was
lying
zero,
through his goddamn
but I didn't
teeth.
find much that I could say, oh no, this guy is absolutely off, you know, in what he's telling me is the truth. And so I wouldn't say that
He's so covering for Bob Lazar and covering for George Knapp. It's like George Knapp picked up, you know, Bigelow and hired him basically to say these things so that they could keep this lie going about these, you know, this fake physicist that supposedly worked on alien craft. And yet they won't mention the names of the real physicists that they brought in, the real scientists who worked on this stuff for these, you know, who were really connected to those kind of secret programs and have really written the real papers that have, you know, for the Air Force and for the DoD and for the military on these projects and these programs, like the warp drives and stuff that you're not talking about, that you're covering up, that you're helping to the truth embargo to conceal by continuing to push frauds and lies upon us. It's really sad. This man has made his entire career for the past 30 years off selling the Bob Lazar story and other UFO tales. And what's going on right now is literally an end to his career and everyone else, his career that comes after him that is in this community with him. Because once science and technology show anti-gravity is a fact and these black programs come out, we have real disclosure, scientific level disclosure. These people, their job goes away. They don't have a job anymore. Their millions that they use to buy their mansions and stuff, it all disappears. And so they have to fight this. They don't want disclosure. They're going to continue to push the same bullshit that's been being pushed for the past 30 years since this individual got involved and teamed up with Bob Lazar and teamed up with some of these people that I think were directly related to government counterintelligence groups like Richard Doty, admitted, Mirage Men. Anyone seen the movie Mirage Men? We got to get Walter Bosley to come on this show, man. My opinions, I'm dressing up opinions as fact. Which opinions did I dress up as fact? Okay. The science involved in this is that these scientists came in, according to the story that I heard, that these people don't mention, that they leave out of the picture entirely. The scientists came in, they tested Bob Lazar. He was not a senior staff physicist. What Bigelow's saying about he didn't find much to discredit his claims about Area 51 is bullshit. It's clearly bullshit. Because the guy, he wasn't a senior staff physicist. I'll give you the names of people that were senior staff physicists out there. Edward Mills Purcell. Okay, this is not my opinion. This is documented fact. And anyone in the physics community, anyone in the SAP and dark technologies community will tell you that this man ran the CIA's Project Rainbow. He ran Project Rainbow and their entire study on nuclear magnetic response and radar systems since the time that radar was invented up until, you know, he died in 97 at age 84. So I don't know what you're telling me about my opinion, like, is not a fact, bro. This man, his entire career depends,
I think,
on pushing this forward and keeping the Lazar story together. If he were to put all the pieces together on Lazar and crush the Lazar story, you know, he has nothing left. So these people are clearly lying. I'm demonstrating that they're lying. And I don't care if you think it's my opinion, bro. That's fact. It's documented fact. It is not my opinion. All right? It is not my opinion that Bob Lazar lied about, making lithium hydride in a particle accelerator at 1 reaction per minute. Then he needs to make 10 to the 23rd atoms of this stuff in order to have a mole, 1 mole. Avogadro's number. Anything about science, which you probably don't if you believe Bob Lazar and George Knapp. But anyways, this is a concentrated effort among these people to conceal the science and to conceal the names of the scientists, their work, and the real information. They keep the focus on Bob Lazar. They don't talk about or give credit to Eric Davis or Hal Puthoff. In fact, those guys are almost silenced. I don't even know if they can talk, because I've written to Eric Davis, and he's written back on responded to numerous people in these chain emails that I'm getting. I read tons of, I know he gets the emails, but he won't respond to mine because I've asked him questions about, this relationship with Bigelow, and he doesn't want to talk about it. I don't think he can talk about it. Another interesting thing. Larry King recently died, as you know. And in case you didn't know Larry King and how he made his career, he's another Muppet for the mainstream media. In 1971, a complaint was filed against Larry King, then a Miami radio host, for pocketing $5,000, part of a $25,000 payment, destined for a New Orleans District Attorney, Jim Garrison, who investigated the JFK assassination. So Larry King kept the bag, didn't deliver the money to the Jim Garrison assassination, and basically played middleman for the CIA in covering up the JFK assassination and evidence from that getting out, and the way that Jim Garrison and his investigation was portrayed in the mainstream media, which was an absolute crime against justice and against our nation, in fact, really. But it just goes to show you that, you don't know the fact that many of the people in media that are like big names actually got their start by doing scumbag things for the deep state, like Larry King in his, work to undermine the work of New Orleans District Attorney Jim Garrison. Another major one would be, if you want to look it up, Dan Rather. Anyone know Dan Rather? So Dan Rather was the first news correspondent. He was just a no-man news correspondent in Dallas when, on November 25th, 1963, right after the JFK assassination, he was chosen as the one person to actually, he was shown the Zapruder film. And because they said that the Zapruder film was too, it was too violent to show on national television in 1963. So Dan Rather was hired to watch it and then tell us what he saw in the video. And then that video was stored and hidden away for over a decade, and until it finally came out.
By an amateur photographer who had a particularly good vantage point just past the building from which the fatal shot was fired. The film showed President Kennedy's open black limousine making a left turn off Houston Street onto Elm Street on the fringe of downtown Dallas. A left turn made just below the window in which the assassin was waiting. About 35 yards past the very base of the building, just below the window, President Kennedy could be seen to put his right hand up to the side of his head to either brush back his hair or perhaps rub his eyebrow. President Kennedy was sitting on the same side of the car as the building from which the shot came. Mrs. Kennedy was by his side. In the jump seat in front of him, Mrs. Connolly and Governor Connolly. Governor Connolly on the same side of the car as the president, and in the front seat, 2 Secret Service men. Just as the president put that right hand up to the side of his head, you could see him lurch forward. The first shot had hit him. Mrs. Kennedy was looking in another direction and apparently didn't see or sense that first shot or didn't hear it. But Governor Connolly in the seat in front appeared to have heard it or at least sensed that something was wrong. The governor's coat was open. He reached back in this fashion, exposing his white shirt front to the assassin's window. He reached back as if to offer aid or ask the president something. At that moment, a shot clearly hit the governor in the front, and he fell back in the seat. Mrs. Connolly immediately threw herself over him in a protective position. In the next instant, with this time Mrs. Kennedy apparently looking on, a second shot, the third total shot, hit the president's head. His head could be seen to move violently forward. And Mrs. Kennedy stood up immediately.
Okay, so that right there, he says that Kennedy's head was seen to move violently forward, and he tips his head and shows that motion. It says violently forward. Now, anyone who's seen the Zapruder film, right? Anyone who's seen that film knows for a fact that his head goes back into the left. Back into the left. That was the whole, if anyone's seen JFK or that knows anything about the District Attorney Jim Garrison's investigation into the Kennedy assassination, that was like the key part of the film, is back into the left. So when Dan Rather told the world that his head was moved forward, it was in conjunction with the shot fired from the school book depository building. And that agreed with this theory of 3 shots and the final one coming from the school book depository building. All right, and this is like a staple of American culture. This was a major film, which prompted the release of a ton of assassination records after this film came out. It was basically like they were forced to start declassifying a lot of the JFK files, and they found that a lot of them couldn't be declassified because people involved were still alive. And it's just crazy that it's been covered up, and it's still being covered up for national security reasons. And now they pull this bullshit with Alex Jones and with the United States a conspiracy, and Trump, promoting these crazy, using conspiracy theories for political weapons for the past 4 years. Now they're using that as the excuse to go after all conspiracy theories. So you won't. It would be crazy if 1984 is brought in like this, and they just shut down all people talking about conspiracy theories in general, and you're no longer allowed to discuss conspiracy theories or even have alternative views on the government or what's going on in the world, other than what the media is telling us is going on in the world. And that's a scary thought. I really hope it doesn't get to that level, and that, that there's a line drawn. There is, there's a whole issue of where does, free speech and drawing the line. Where do you don't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? Where do we draw the line between your freedom of your expression and your discrimination? When with these false conspiracies like Pizzagate, they covered Pizzagate as one of the conspiracies. That guy that literally he drove down to Comet Pizza with an assault rifle, looking for the secret basement where they, So the Pizzagate gunman, he got 4 years in prison. This guy, Edgar Madison, got so hyped up by these conspiracy theories online and these allegations that, Ping Pong Pizza and, has this pedophile ring running on underneath it. This guy grabbed a bunch of assault rifles and drove down there and busted into the place and held the whole manager and everyone at gunpoint and was trying to get into this basement that he found didn't exist, or couldn't at least I don't know. It was a whole bunch of bullshit is basically what it was. There was the QAnon spread all this fake conspiracy theories about these pedophile rings connected to this Ping Pong Pizza and Podesta and all these other people, and then it came out that there was a real pedophile ring, and that it was run by Jeffrey Epstein. And then they tried to take credit for the Jeffrey Epstein case as if they were like predicting it with their, conspiracy theories about this high-level pedophile rings, which, alleged Podesta and Comet Pizza, like completely different people who I don't know that Podesta and Epstein were ever connected, other than like, I don't know enough about that, but I have never seen, a real link there, a real legitimate link there. It looks to me like that was disinformation that was put out to cover up for a real pedophile ring and make these conspiracy theories look dangerous, when in reality, Jeffrey Epstein was the dangerous one, hustling millions and thousands of girls, paying them, running a multi-billion-dollar human trafficking network. That was very real, and justice died along with him in that cell. But I just worry about the future of us being able to talk about conspiracies. But in reality, like, conspiracy is a huge part of American culture. It's literally almost everything. So let me find out what I want to talk about next. Let's get something else up. I keep showing Steve Cambion up on here, and Steve Cambion recently has been doing some really great interviews. He's been having some great guests on. He's invited me on next week to have a little debate and discussion because I guess Cal Korff or something was going to have a debate with Kevin Randall or something, but I think I've gotten most of Kevin Randall's gems. He didn't really. I was hoping for more information being shared on this revisit to Roswell, but they wasted a lot of time on other topics and didn't really get into a lot of the nuts and bolts on Roswell that I really wanted to. Although I've kind of already, I'm doing a big piece on Roswell right now. I've done a whole intelligence summary report on Roswell that I'm putting together, and including a real hard look at all the scientists that I've identified as people who are involved and starting to dig into more of their background and some of the things that happen in their life and some of the things that they've said over the years. But I have a good report going together on Roswell that I'm putting together, and I'm going to be doing a little debate with this guy, Cal Korff, who's, of course, one of the original investigators of Roswell at age 17, pictured with Stanton Friedman, being super into UFOs. He infiltrated the Billy Meyer cult and lived underground with the Billy Meyer cult for a period of time to collect evidence and information about the Billy Meyer sex cult that started a lot of these UFO conspiracies with flying saucers and pictures of flying saucers back in the 1970s and 80s, which bear a very striking resemblance to the Bob Lazar UFO craft, that I can't find it now. But anyways, Cal Korff lived. Here's a picture of Cal with Stanton Friedman right there. But in any case, Cal made an interesting comment towards the end of the show. I won't spend too much time on it, but because I didn't catch the whole entire show. But he made an interesting comment that why hasn't any Israeli, why aren't if UFOs are real, right? Because his whole thing is that UFOs are used as like a cover for top secret research, and I think a lot of that is true. A lot of UFO cases are used as a cover for top secret research. It's like, what better to get people, to hide the secret stealth planes and different exotic types of aircraft that you're working on than telling people it's aliens. It seems like a great cover story, and it's definitely a plausible and probable scenario. One that's being, I even question the legitimacy of David Fravor and some of those pilots that saw that gimbal UFO. I'm like, are these guys just doing a retirement plan for this whole story? Because to sell this, they've been in, are they into UFOs already? Like, I don't know enough about they don't have enough facts versus their opinions for me to put faith into them yet. People want to question my opinions, which I try to base in scientific fact and the fact that we have a lot of information about stuff that's technologies that could explain these things also. There's Richard Stape of the SAP office said that there are no SAPs that really explain what these things are or what they do, but I beg to differ, and we've mentioned a couple on this program in past shows. But one of the things about this this whole thing with Cal Korff is that he said that where's the Israeli connection and what's the Israeli stuff? And my whole thing is the scientists. I've always been after who the scientists are and who the scientists are that are studying this stuff and what the science is. Okay, that's my main focus. And so when he said Israelis, I didn't think, I know a couple of Mossad. I don't know too much about Mossad or I'm not like an expert on it. I know a few things about, Israeli intelligence and stuff, but in reality, my expertise is the science and knowing the scientists. So the first person I thought of when he mentioned, there's a lack of an Israel connection, and why, Israel's got the biggest spy and intelligence network in the world. You know that. I know enough about Mossad to know that. All right. Mossad's intelligence is the Israeli intelligence, and they're literally per capita they spend more on intelligence than military or anything combined. They're like a state that almost runs itself off of their intelligence abilities and their capabilities. In fact, they were. It was proved that Epstein was, at least somehow working as an agent of the Israeli Mossad and providing them with intelligence and information on a lot of these world targets, which I bet you Mossad and these intelligence agencies have a lot of information that could be prosecutable evidence that would be of great interest to the courts that are trying to attempt to prosecute very powerful and wealthy individuals for those crimes connected with the Epstein scandal and that whole case, which the FBI is still investigating. Of course, it gives the Mossad, the Mossad would rather use that information as, a leverage. It's for control over those people rather than hand that information directly over to the FBI. That serves them no purpose at all, Not when they can threaten those people with, hey, if you don't do this and this and this, we'll hand all your information over to the FBI. That, my friends, works a lot better. So that is what we call deep state. The fact that these people probably have all those video clips of Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton fucking 14-year-olds on Pedophile Island. I guarantee it. They have that. And they're using it for, immense leverage and political leverage and stuff. So that's one issue and one problem with things that are going on in the world right now. And very powerful people who did very terrible things. But back to the science and back to the physicists. Daniel Shechtman is the leading expert on quasicrystals. Like, he's won the Nobel Prize for he won the Nobel Prize for quasicrystals and his work into metals and interesting new phases of metals with new types of crystal structures that weren't that were only predicted, yet never really discovered before he did a lot of his work. Now, what's super interesting you notice about his background and his career is that one of the institutions he worked for was Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. In fact, after receiving his PhD in material engineering from Technion in 1972, where he also obtained his bachelor's in mechanical engineering and a master's in materials engineering in 1968, Professor Shechtman was an NRC fellow at the Aerospace Research Laboratories at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Ohio. So NRC is the National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, is the collective. So let me see. This is the National Research Council. That's the NRC, is the National Research Council. So these are the people that would be in charge of those kinds of foreign objects and research into foreign materials, if that kind of a program or that kind of a thing existed. These would be some of the top people that would have been connected to that, especially the people from Wright-Patterson, which is interesting. I have questions about, what he learned and what he had was exposed to there. But it's certainly interesting that, you know, the Israeli of all the Israeli scientists I know who are working on interesting stuff, you know, I knew Dan Shechtman had been done a lot of research into quasi-crystals and you know, Nobel Prize winning work in the quasi-crystals, but I had not known until he mentioned that I went and looked up Daniel Shechtman and started looking into him, that he had actually worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base right after getting his PhD, that they knew this guy was a PhD in the right kind of stuff, had the right kind of skew on this, so that it's almost possible that they could have brought this guy in and at least told him something or showed him something that sparked his imagination to go towards these things, which, as we know from Edgar Fouché, quasi-crystals were apparently something that Area 51 was quite interested in back in the 80s, at least, when he worked there, and in the 90s, you know, throughout the 90s, when some of his sources were still working there, up until 1998, when he, of course, came forward with all his information. But yeah, Edgar Fouché talked about, one of the things was quasi-crystals and metamaterials, and those were what got me interested in this field as a young physicist years ago. And I was like, oh my God, what you could do with these materials, and like the ability to engineer things on them, you know, atomic level and the atomic scale, what that's going to open up for us scientifically once, you know, we're building things on this atomic level. That's what, you can't get any closer to alien technology than doing that. And so this is what actually got me into studying UFOs and taking the subject more seriously as a, you know, a young scientist, you know, a young engineer, and basically got me more involved in this. It didn't take just Bob Lazar, because, you know, Bob Lazar might have, you know, opened my imagination to some things, but it didn't really like take it down to this level when I started realizing these crystals and these light capabilities and the electromagnetic properties of these materials and what they could do for bending light and doing that sort of stuff. So again, this has been the focus of my research as of late, this sort of stuff. Let me see, what else did I want to cover? I guess I'll talk more about the lab and our what we're doing right now with relation to this. So we've gotten through a lot of the older anti-gravity experiments, right? All the anti-gravity. There's a bunch of groups that are working on anti-gravity. More people are starting to look into it or take it seriously. Veritasium did this video on the, you know, Eric Laithwaite stuff, and we had that guy on from Project Green Glow talking about all the Eric Laithwaite research, who actually knew some of those people directly. You know, that was on our last APEC conference. If you missed that, you can go to my channel and find Ronald Evans, Project Green Glow, this one, APEC number 4, where he goes over all that stuff. Super interesting stuff. If you guys haven't checked that out, please go do so. I started streaming that, but we had some audio problems, so we missed like the first 15-20 minutes in the live stream, but I reposted this here, which is the recorded backup version, which is complete. So you guys can go watch that and check that out if you're interested in some of that research. But there's labs all over the country, not just the UK. There's several in the UK, though, that we know of, three or four right now. I've gotten a bunch of equipment, and I'm going to start going out and doing filming like this guy does, where we go to live locations and start talking to some of these labs and getting more in-depth and involved, because this is where we're going to make progress. We're not going to make progress, begging the intelligence agencies to release information that benefits them, or begging our leaders and even in the community of ufology, like George Knapp, to, start talking about the science and the technologies and the real scientists that are going to obviously overshadow and discredit Bob Lazar heavily once people start realizing, just how deep the science goes into this. And one of the things I kind of wanted to mention was cold fusion, because cold fusion is a very interesting history, and it's held a special place for me in my research, because there are so many people that are brilliant people that have, and so many great experimentalists, including, I don't think that Pons and Fleischmann were off. I think that they were, that certain things happened back then with cold fusion that were, that led to its ridicule and its position, way it's viewed in the scientific community. But it's certainly not a dead field. It's a growing kind of underground research field, and it's sort of interesting, the divide that's sort of lifted up between academia, who refuses to admit its past mistakes, and the ongoing push for people that actually care about science and care about renewable free energy, because cold fusion would be amazing. You could fuse in a desktop laboratory using the right nanomaterials and right composites. We could build a nanoscale reactor which doesn't produce harmful gamma radiations, because it divides up those gammas into phonons through Bremsstrahlung radiation. There's lots of good physics out that explains away all the criticisms that were laid down by Husienga and others in their early criticisms on the nuclear physics of cold fusion and why it's implausibility. But it's no longer a question of whether it's plausible or not. It's now pretty much a documented fact that tritium is produced, that fusion is produced in these reactions in tabletop experiments. Alphas are produced. So it's now no longer a question of whether it's a real effect. It's just how do we make it useful and how do we engineer it, because cold fusion does us no good. In order for me to build a power plant around something, I need to create steam, and then steam has to push a turbine. That's pretty much how all our electrical power is generated, even nuclear power. Nuclear power heats water and makes steam, and then the steam turns a turbine, and then the turbine pushes a generator, which generates electricity. And so all of our electrical generation is based on three-phase electrical power generation systems that were identical to the ones developed by Tesla, early on, almost identical. I mean, there've been a lot of improvements in materials and engineering and stuff over the years, but basically Tesla designed this system of electrical power generation. And this is the best way to do it engineering-wise so far that we have, is just to create a bunch of steam and then use the steam to push turbines, and then use those turbines to generate three-phase electricity. And that's pretty much how all of our power plants work. But again, cold fusion, it has a problem, because how do you heat if it's cold, you need to boil water with it. So how do you boil water with it except with electrolysis, and how do you get that heat to actually do work for you? If it's just producing fusion at this low rate, and it's all that energy is just divided up to the lattice, then how does it get used, and how do you actually extract energy out of it and do stuff with it? So that's the big question right now, is figuring that out. And I believe that material science is going to answer those questions. And I think that these alloys and stuff are going to have a lot to do with it. I wanted to talk about a couple different things that we had. Liquid metal. They have very awesome technologies. This is the liquid metal process. Kind of want to show you guys this. I'm going to read some...
Here it is. What do you think?
Oh, this is great. Look at that finish. In one step, too. I mean, it's like, I've never seen anything like this before.
Well, now you can. You want me to show you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's lattice-assisted nuclear reaction. Here's their machine that they use for this process. They take Yeah, so let me turn that down. This music's annoying. So they take this zirconium metal and they inject it in this sort of like mold, and then they pull it out of these molds, almost like a plastic blow mold injection process, and they're able to create these cast parts, which they can then pull out. It's almost like a plastic metal, but it's much stronger than plastic. It's metallic. It can be custom engineered too to have different electrical and conductivity properties as well, which I thought was interesting. I guess there are plants over in China that does it. This is some post-processing that they're doing. But again, they're able to make these parts. So I thought this was interesting because they have a tuning fork, right? And I got to get some of these tuning forks. So I got to get, I need someone, but in order for me to get a tuning fork built by this company, apparently I've contacted them and asked for, you can't just buy tuning forks directly. They offer the manufacturing. So what I want to do is buy a whole set of tuning forks from these people, I want to find an investor who wants to sell these. We could sell these through my website. Check these tuning forks out. So they take a regular tuning fork, a couple different regular steel tuning fork. I think they have one made of stainless steel, one made of titanium, and then this one's made out of liquid metal. So they have different, types of materials for these tuning forks, and they show the difference. This liquid metal one literally has no dampening. Are very, very low dampening. You can't say it has no dampening because it is air. If in a vacuum, it might have like no dampening. I wonder what it would do in a vacuum. Because the other tuning forks like stop going after a while, but liquid metal just keeps going and it vibrates at full force for continuously, which is quite an amazing thing. If you think about what you can do with that. Super elastic material that is super strong but yet super flexible like that resonates indefinitely. And so we're going to try and get some tuning forks and some other musical instruments made out of this stuff, and do to run some experiments with. And also I want to sell them through the website for other people to have for music and also for experiments of their own, if they're not too expensive. So what I need right now is someone who can do 3D CADing and drawing. I want someone who knows how to do build stuff in a 3D CAD software, and who can build. Basically, I need someone who can build me some tuning forks, and then we'll figure out how we need the lengths and stuff and size that we need to make them to make a couple different ones that should have different frequencies. Maybe we can tune them afterwards with an oscilloscope and some after processing and machinery, grinding down the tips until they're the perfect length and whatnot. So maybe we could do some of that in post-processing, but I'd like to get some kind of thing together so that, I don't know, I got to talk to this guy, but I need someone who can do 3D CADing and drawing and stuff to join our team, so that we can, because we need someone who has this ability on our team right now. We have a lot of need for building sort of stuff like this. So if you know anyone, or if you yourself are interested, you have these skills, please reach out to me at thealienscientist@gmail.com or thealienscientist@protonmail.com. And I really would like to get someone on board who can make these things, because I want to make some tuning forks, and I want to make some other musical instruments and stuff out of this material that we can use in experiments that require materials that have super resonant properties like this. So another interesting video that I came across, let me find it for you because I have this stream. Oh, I have a live chat here from Test Rabbit. I love your curiosity and helping people get to real world conclusions. Thank you, man. I'm trying to help them get to real world conclusions because we need actionable intelligence. I think that's what this is about. Is a lot of people have their head in the clouds with trying to understand what's going on and a lot of this stuff out there. And my head's always been at just, well, how can I build this? How can I prove this? How can I detect it? How can I measure it? How can I prove it that it's real scientifically to the rest of the world, so that it's no longer doubted and no longer a question. So that's what I'm here for. And unfortunately, in that process, a lot of shit gets left. A lot of the crap just gets cut out and left on the cutting room floor. So it's let me see. Here we go. Where's the thing that I posted on this? All right. So this one I thought was super interesting, and I wanted to talk about this for a second. This. So this guy has another tuning fork experiment, and that I really wanted to try because I don't know if there could be other things. So this is a tuning fork experiment. This is a scarab beetle wing. He takes a scarab beetle wing and just a tuning fork, apparently, and this happens. Now I haven't tried this on my own, so I haven't determined that this actually works or not. But it's very interesting video nonetheless if this is a real effect. So that these subtle sound vibrations in the air, of that air vibrating across the nanostructures in the chitin in this wing create these effects. And I don't know if it's just the interaction of this wing with the table. I don't know if this would work actually in the air to create a lift or or a propulsion effect. But it seems to be creating enough force to send this thing flying across the table here with just putting that sound vibration next to the wings. So what is going on here? We haven't exactly figured out because it's, of course, I just came across this, but I thought I would bring it up and show people because it's super interesting. And it's something that we've kind of been discussing in the group a little bit, but I wanted to hash out here in a video so that if anyone else has any more information related to this, they could come forward and share that with us, and also so that I could hash out this idea a little bit better, because I hashed it out on Twitter already. Briefly, and I had a comment already from Jamie Komperlich, who said, seriously doubt this will ever lead to anti-gravity. Okay, well, if you got any better ideas, share them, because we're trying pretty much everything that we can get a force out of and a field out of, and that has legitimate science. And right now I'm looking at nanotechnology and nanostructures, and I thought that these were super interesting because, let me find this now. So let's bring this up. So this picture is super interesting. This is a SEM, scanning electron microscope, image of one of these beetle wings, one of these insect wings. So there's a lot of different morphology that exists in the SEM data on scarab beetle wings and the different types of wings and the wing structures. But essentially what we determined is that there are these resonant structures built for resonance which produce these electrodes on the tips of them, which again, they create a magnetic fields, tiny magnetic fields going this way, with electric fields going out the tips of these things and concentrating on the tip of the highest divergence on the tip of these structures. So you get these really high electric fields that appear as this. So as this air is pushed essentially across these structures, it kind of recycles or pulls energy out of that, through mechanical motion, and transfers it into electrical charge or electrical potential. Which could be causing that to, the electric potential causing that wing to, I don't know, that's why I wasn't sure if it will work in an air or if it's just working because it's repelling against the table itself. But again, these microstructures, I feel like they have a great deal to do with the physics of what's going on in this phenomena. Again, there's great interest going on into collecting beetles for scientific research because they have these metallic looking beetles. There's a whole host of these beetles, right, that look super metallic, and there's nothing metal in them at all. So these bugs are made out of pure chitin. It's the same kind of organic molecule that makes up all insect exoskeletons, and yet these bugs look like they're literally made out of metal and have these wings and these wing coatings that have metallic metallic features and metallic auras. They have iridescence, and this is all literally controlled by the nanotechnology within the chitin and the chitin structures, these scientists have shown with the SEM images. When they look at this stuff under a microscope, it's literally the spacing is tuned. The spacing between these chitin things and the structure of these molecules. Let's look up. Imaging. So SEM is scanning electron microscope imaging, and these this is the one I was looking at. So these are different types of morphologies that are seen in these insect skins and just the skins of the beetles. So these forests of these little nano trees, these nano scales, and the size of the nanoscales are, if they change the size of the scale, will actually change the color, because it changes the frequency they're so small that they're interacting with frequency of the core frequencies of light. So if you change that, it eliminates what frequencies it eliminates or reflects, and so it changes the color literally of the beetle. So that's how these beetles change, have the color changing aspects of it. And it's almost similar to the way that a chameleon changes its color and has its color changing adaptations through the way it's able to change those surfaces in the skin to do that. And its skin, it's a little different process because it's a different physics that are going on there. But the physics that are going on here are super interesting because it's again that near field, far field stuff, and it traps some of the fields while bouncing some of the other ones away. And understanding those effects and how they work is crucial to our ability to create materials that manipulate light and ways to create them cheaply, because insects do them quite inexpensively. If we could adapt insects to do this sort of stuff. Nah, sky's not the limit. Thank you for the $2 donation. Try searching Higgs model in superconductors. So another thing that's interesting about you mentioned superconductors. Light-controlled Higgs modes found in superconductors. Ooh, this is cool. So light-controlled Higgs modes. So we control Higgs modes via light. That would be, super awesome. This only has 6 views. This was just posted a couple days ago. I can't believe this only has 6 views. This is interesting, man. So they got voltage control, a bending electrode. See, they have mechanical force. Again here, this mechanical force. This goes right in line with what I've been saying about these, using this metallic glass structure in conjunction with these wing structures. So you can basically combine, in that last video where we saw this tuning fork and the wing, what if we could just combine these two elements? We literally put these nano surfaces that are creating, so we don't see the nanotechnology that's inside this wing that's creating these effects, that's causing it to do this. But what I'm saying is, why don't we combine the two? If you put that wing on the surface of this tuning fork. So that's kind of what I want to do, is start applying, these sort of nano coatings to these tuning forks and see if we get these sort of effects through resonances and these abilities, because that's really what I think is going on in these materials that we see. And by the way, we have we got the Crata. I should show that. Where the heck is that? Let me find the Crata from. Yeah. So the U.S. Army, we have the full Crata with Lou Elizondo for that partnership that they went into with To the Stars Academy, and sorry, that was something else. The To the Stars Academy, they have their whole report on the research that they're doing into that metamaterial and what they're trying to determine from it. And my God, it is just a load of boring, bureaucratical. I mean, how much did they pay someone to write a bunch of this nonsense and not get any research done and not show us anything that's really going on? So they got these technical reports and these milestones. where they're set. So they're planning to not really do much until every September. They're going to be doing an update and having a milestone on an update. So we got to wait till 2023 basically for their closeout and for their determinations. So you can wait two more years for this to go through. And this was carried along, signed this as the officer for To the Stars Academy, which was interesting. But yeah, we have the whole CRADA. I thought that was super interesting when that got passed my way, because here we are digging in and doing the actual physics research into all these materials and these nano coatings and the effects that are going on in these microlayered surfaces that they've showed off in these that one picture. They're just now starting about metamaterials and talking about metamaterials and saying that they have this Atoms Project, material. Where's the To the Stars metamaterial? The arts parts, this thing. So they got this piece they bought for like 20 grand from Linda Moulton Howe, who got it from Art Bell or something. And then they sold it, or they just gave it away to the military for a 3-year study. They're going to get the piece back after they do a bunch of studies on it, which I said will be like the 1949 studies that Beetle did into the titanium alloys that we have the reports for, where they just dissolved it in chlorine and destroyed all the information, and that's stored on the nano layer, or the molecular atomic layer inside these materials, as we've talked about on this show. That destructive testing on this stuff is not the way to go. There's so much. We need to develop our terahertz sensing technology so we can really review this stuff. And then their whole excuse was that they don't have the terahertz capabilities in their labs, or any labs that they know of. So that's why they had to sign this partnership with the military, and that's why they gave it to the U.S. Army, because the U.S. Army apparently has terahertz capabilities and other labs don't, which is a lie. And I've shown that there are many other labs that have terahertz capabilities. In fact, the one that they should have gone to, the terahertz and ultra-fast photonics lab, is at Wright State University, and not at it's connected to the Air Force, and it's not even connected to the U.S. Army. So it's kind of, I just view this as Pentagon misdirection and disinformation to throw people off the trail of the real science and the real research once again. Which, I don't blame them for or really fault them for, but the fact is that human science is at stake here, and the people in power are going to kill this country and going to kill everyone involved if we're not, and we're going to ban free speech, and this will be considered a conspiracy theory. We won't even be allowed to talk about it, or we're going to be bagged and gagged. And I don't know if people know what's going on right now, like with the government. Apparently, Trump has created a office of the ex-president, and he's got all of his supporters are rallied around him, planning for a re-election campaign in 2024. And they basically they have their own news channel, their own private underground thing that, and this exists. I don't necessarily encourage people to go and pay attention to this but know that it exists, that the media is not reporting on it. They're not talking about it. They're not giving this any, they're sort of just really focusing on the new president and trying to get the transition of power over as smoothly as possible and quell the domestic stuff that there's still insurrections and there's still threats until March. They're keeping all the National Guard in D.C. until March, until they can figure out this whole mess. But apparently the president, the office of the ex-president, Trump's now got an office on a news station that's basically collecting any piece of intelligence they can on the Biden administration, and they're basically going to try to, they're doing everything they can to take Biden down. Basically, there's a big half the country is basically, half of these right wing political groups in this country are now rallied around Trump in this effort to sort of undermine the presidency of Joe Biden actively, and they're not reporting on that. So that is going on. If you guys want to check that out, it won't be on any of the mainstream news channels, and you'll have to go to other sites like Band.video and BitChute and other sites to even learn about it or know that it exists, because all the big tech companies are against keeping a lot of that stuff under wraps. But anyways, let's get back into this Higgs mode light controlled Higgs modes. This is amazing if we can control Higgs modes with light in objects. Why they got a bunch of bricks built missing? This looks like a car ran into a wall.
Still interact with each other. Wang said this Higgs mode within a superconductor could potentially be used to develop new quantum sensors. It's just like the Large Hadron Collider can use the Higgs particle to detect dark energy or antimatter to help us understand the origin of the universe, Wang said. And our Higgs mode sensors on the tabletop have the potential help us discover the hidden secrets of quantum states of matter. That understanding, Wang said, could advance a new, quantum revolution, for high-speed computing and information technologies. It's one way this exotic, strange, quantum world can be applied to real life, Wang said. Like control of superconductors, the project takes a three-pronged approach to accessing and understanding the special properties, such as this Higgs mode, hidden within superconductors. Wang's research group uses a tool called quantum terahertz spectroscopy to visualize and steer pairs of electron. The tool uses laser flashes as a control knob to accelerate supercurrents and access new and potentially useful quantum states of matter. EOM's group developed the synthesis technique that produces crystalline thin films of the iron-based superconductor with high enough quality to reveal the Higgs mode. Hellstrom's group developed deposition sources for the iron-based superconducting thin film development. Paracas group led the development of quantum models and theories to explain the results of the experiments and to simulate the salient features that come from the Higgs mode. The work has been supported by a grant to Wang from the National Science Foundation and grants to EOM and Paracas from the U.S. Department of Energy. Interdisciplinary science is the key here, Paracas said. We have quantum physics, materials science and engineering, condensed matter physics, lasers and photonics with inspirations from fundamental, high energy and particle physics. There are.
This is great because this really resonates with me. To make a pun, bringing all these different fields together is going to be such a key part of this. Because they're correct. They're absolutely correct. It requires bringing condensed matter physics, material science, quantum physics, and lasers and photonics, all this stuff together, and particle and high energy particle physics. It requires bringing all these groups together to work on this project, and that's sort of what we're trying to assemble and establish here with with Alien Scientists and with Tim Ventura over at APEC. So American Anti-Gravity and Tim Ventura, we're proud to be working in conjunction with them and helping to put together this conference, get guests onto this conference, and get good panels of guests on there to ask questions to our guests, so that we can have a real gauntlet of vetting of a lot of the information. And it's been quite telling because a lot of people that we've invited who are real popular and stuff, it's unsure why they've turned down our invitation, and I know we're that some people view my hostility maybe as a threat, and it's only a threat if you're out there spreading bullshit, dude. Like if you're in here like spreading real information and doing real good research, man, you can ask people. I'll be I'm like your best friend. I'll be your biggest promoter, and I'm gonna like say that you're doing legit stuff. Just like, I love what I'm gonna stand by, my friends Dr. Brian Keaton and his channel and what he's doing with, recently bringing Avi Loeb on the show to talk about aliens. Talking about Garrett Lisi, talking with Garrett Weinstein and Eric Lisi, talking about the need for new scientific institutions and new ideas, and really to make the next breakthrough in physics. They understand that we're at this tipping point, this theory of everything, and all the controversy that's going on surrounding the theory of everything. And that's something I'm also super interested in. I've been following, still trying to follow what Stephen Wolfram is doing. Wouldn't mind getting. I really like Stephen Wolfram, but he's kind of like, he's so wrapped up in this now. I almost would rather talk to his partner there, Jonathan. Jonathan seems like he seems like he's got a super good grasp on a lot of the theoretical physics and really the mathematics that are going to be required to pull this model of the universe, this model of physics and consciousness and understanding together. And that kind of brings us back to these. So another thing I forgot to mention with Bigelow was this prize, right? Anyone heard of the prize that they got? So Las Vegas businessman offering $1 million prize for the evidence of life after death. So he's got a $1 million prize. You got to write a, was it 23,000 word essay? I forget where I seen that. But you have to write a 25,000 word essay, and it's due by August 1st. You have to qualify by February. So, and they should have at least 5 years studying in the field. So I'm not sure what the field is, but apparently the field is afterlife studies. So I don't know if that means, you're studied heaven and hell at religious scholars. All right, so he's looking for entries from top scientists, religious scholars, consciousness researchers, or anyone who can find evidence of the existence of the afterlife. So he just wants there to be evidence of an afterlife. What's the Wheeler? Observer. So I always thought this was interesting about observers, and where's his drawing? So this is how Wheeler drew this. This is the U looking at itself, and his vision or his imagination of understanding the universe and consciousness, and what consciousness is. I guess I've studied this quite a bit, and I have some interesting ideas and theories on this, and my own interpretation of what the afterlife is, and what the meaning of life is in our time on Earth. Like, I've really come to this realization that it's about realizing your place in the universe and realizing your interconnectedness. And one of the biggest things that I liked about Wheeler's view on this and his whole approach was that he said everything is, everything's connected. It's all like, and that really resonates me with Stephen Wolfram's hypergraph theory of physics, because he's got this model of the universe where, everything is literally interconnected, and it's all about those connections and how long they exist and what makes up the conditions of their connection. Really profound stuff philosophically and mathematically if you really look at it, because the way I look at it is that you almost need two observers. Like, if you were just here by yourself and there was no, if you woke up tomorrow and everyone else was gone and it was just you in the world, like, what would you even do? Would you even be able to function? And you'd be having to do so much work to provide for just yourself to go back to a state of living. I mean, eventually the food would run out or go bad that exists, and you'd have to go back to archaic means and stuff. But it's really about the interconnections that form our whole reality and our whole foundation of what it means to be human and what it means to be part of this network. And I think that really everything you do in your life is the connections that you make and the impact that you leave and what you build for the future generations and what you've done. You know, it's literally how you're remembered. I like the quote from Banksy about living twice, right? They say you are dying twice. Sorry. So Banksy, die twice. Let me find the date. Die twice quote. Ready? I mean, they say you die twice. One time when you stop breathing, and a second time a little later on when somebody says your name for the last time. And that was in that movie. That was in that movie Coco too. I watched that with my kid. Coco, the movie about the afterlife. It's a Disney movie about going to the land of the dead. And he literally takes it's a Disney movie where this kid he goes to the land of the dead because he steals this cursed guitar or whatever, and he has to get back, and basically allows him to cross this bridge into this land of the living and the land of the dead. And he's invisible as long as he's dead. No one can see him and no one can touch him, but he can see everything and interact with it. He can't interact with it. He can see everything going around and move through it and be there, present for it, the whole time. But they can't see him. They can't talk to him. They can't know he's there. But he's literally there, like watching and looking at everything and being able to live consciously through. Apparently, one of the weird things about they say about ghosts is that they stay like a 6-year-old boy. Like if the 6-year-old boy died in that house, the ghost is a 6-year-old boy that haunts it for like eternity or whatever. If you believe in spirits or like these underlying concepts, which are a part of our culture and a lot of this understanding of what an afterlife is. But in this movie, one of the interesting things that happens is his friend dies. Apparently, they go to this afterlife world, and they live in this afterlife world, and they live on. And their popularity and fame in the afterlife world is based on, their understandings of the people in the real world, and that some of these people are just forgotten, and they eventually fade out and die. And that happens when the last person who remembers them dies. Or, so when the last person who says their name for the last time and your memory's forgotten, that's when you just officially disappear and you're no longer a person and you no longer exist. So your life means nothing. So the only way to really live forever in this sort of purely informational sense, I would look at it as a purely informational view of the universe, which is really a good way of looking at the universe. A lot of physicists have gone a long way looking at the universe in terms of a computation or just as information and what happens to the information. What happens to information when it goes into a black hole. And that's big debates in physics over this right now. But the fact is that when someone says your name for the last time, dude, you're gone. So it's goodbye. It's if you want to be remembered and really have an afterlife in that sense, if that were the real sense of, an afterlife and consciousness, and that's the best way I can prove an afterlife exists within our physical realm, because it might exist somewhere else, but again, if it's just existing in this ether realm and it can't interact back with us, and it's there, but it doesn't. It's just dark energy, and it can't really come back and do anything or affect the world. And what difference does it make? Because so-and-so who did whatever is going to be forgotten unless people remember him or know their name. And then certain people like, Tesla or these other people, they become immortal so long as, the information from our culture survives. So if our civilization wipes itself out with, mutually assured destruction and we bomb the entire earth, right? Then that information is going to be destroyed. And if we kill ourselves off before we kill ourselves off, or an asteroid comes and wipes out our planet before we evolve and reach type 1 and leave this planet and get to other planets where we can assure our survival in space and in the long run, then none of this is certain. All this information that exists right now, it could all be forgotten. And you think about it in another million or a billion years, like what's gonna happen? And then really the only way to preserve that information and make sure it gets passed down is to save it and to, you know, ensure that we get off this planet and that the information survives. So I don't know. That's sort of my whole view on this, is that, you know, it's really your impact is what you do in the world and how you're remembered, and the mark you leave, and how many people remember you and talk about you years later, and what you're credited for in the future, you know. And that's really, that's all there is, man. Like, I don't know what else you think exists in the real world, but that's all we have is in the history books. And a lot of history's disappeared. A lot of history's, you know, forgotten or rewritten. And history gets erased and deleted from the internet daily, you know? Because people want to change the view of history. They want to erase all the ugly stuff or the bad stuff or the mistakes and whatnot. And so history's getting rewritten all the time. The history's just, you know, history's written by the winners, man. It's kind of crazy. But it's a stubbornly persistent illusion. Yes. Well, anyways, these materials and these metamaterials, super interesting stuff. I would love to go. I might go up to MIT and try to talk to some people about this stuff and see if we can't get some footage and interviews and stuff. Because these people are 3D printing and building some really amazing, incredible stuff. But anyways, we're near an hour and a half, and I don't want to get too much carried away. I do want to say that we do have these experiments coming up and a lot more physics on the way. I do have some equipment now, so I'm going to go start trying to make appointments to go around and do more high-quality videos in the future. I want to really get on the level from doing these big data information dumps to doing real experiments and condensing stuff down into information summaries, and getting, you know, real concise video, packaging this information up into neat little easy to digest packages that will get a lot of audiences and a lot of views, because there's so much information, there's so much new data that's coming to the table that we're still trying to pull out. And let me find a bunch of stuff. I could talk about some more current events. So the solar winds hack. Has anyone ever heard of this? Anyone heard of this? So there's been, you know, I when I first saw this and I posted it too, I heard a bunch of people like, oh, this is more just the boy who cried wolf. I mean, Russia. So again, I thought it might have been that too, because it's like, oh yeah, Russia did another hack. Yeah, let me see, you know, because everyone has their doubts about the DNC hacks being done by Russia, and everyone thinks it was done by Seth Rich, who was subsequently murdered for doing the leak, because it really doesn't make sense that how they got access to a lot of those servers and places. But this one's apparently even worse, and has a lot of people worrying if there's really any secrets anymore. I mean, there are secrets to a certain extent, because a lot of the stuff is in places that are done through operational security, so it's kept outside those networks and off the, you know, completely disconnected and separate, so it can't be hacked and gotten to without, you know, unless you physically go and break into the places and the facilities where these files and this information is held. So I think there's, you know, a lot to say about that. You know, there is still secrets in the world, but a lot of our electronic storage and communications are completely compromised now, and will continue to be. Everything you do on the internet is recorded. All your communications are logged and stuff. So if you're out there doing, you know, involved in groups that are subversive or you know, doing bad things, you might want to be careful of that, because a lot of that, like I said before, is the FBI wrapping up rings to catch people and involve people. I got invited to a group which I felt was really part of that too. They weren't listening to a lot of the stuff that I was posting, and then I got kicked out eventually. And but yeah, there's some weird stuff going on out there for Again, someone who'd mentioned the the Higgs thing and the superconductors. There's also room temperature superconductors in polariton condensate, which is related to this stuff that I've been talking about. So if you can get room temperature superfluids and superconductors in these polariton condensates, which a polariton condensate is this condensed light kind of stuff, which is what he's talking about and what I'm talking about inside of these crystals. So you condense all the light inside these materials, and then it creates this Higgs field coupling, which can eliminate gravity and create room temperature superconductivity and superfluidity and a lot of other interesting, weird effects. And I pointed out an interesting connection. I saw this, just a random group I was on had this thing about the Bifrost Bridge. And I remember this from watching the Avengers or Thor. I think it was Thor, the movie Thor. They talk about this Bifrost Bridge, where it's a rainbow bridge that connects the world of us to the world of the gods. So, there's a world of gods that's out there, and in order to get there, we need to cross this, open up this rainbow bridge, and the rainbow bridge is called this Bifrost. And interesting that it comes from Norse. And that frost is such a, it's a universal word. It means literally frost or frozen, the frozen rime that appears on things as they freeze. So it's like an aura or a surface coating that appears on things. That's literally what frost is. And a bifrost would be, I think is two. So two layered coatings. This is almost like, wait a minute, they're talking about a double layer or layered, I think of this as Bifrost. I almost was like, oh, maybe I'm just a play on words here. Maybe it's just a coincidence that they're talking about a rainbow bridge that connects our world to the gods. And then here I am doing all this information on squeezing spectrums of light and optical crystals that are capable of, absorbing and re-emitting, full spectrum band gaps. And the kind of optics that I believe are involved in the skins of these craft, which allow them to warp space and do quantum entanglement effects to teleport to other distant points in space by creating a Einstein-Rosen bridge between the 2 points, or a wormhole, essentially, through quantum entanglement. And they do that through light and through light waves and through holographics and something called the quantum eraser. But again, these are pieces of physics that we're trying to fit together in new ways. We need new institutions with new brave ideas to try to figure out ways to break physics or to combine physics in the right ways. Because really, light is all that everything is. Light's super important. There's a laser range finding, okay? So laser range findings, how they have a laser and it's able to tell distances, and there's a lot of handheld pocket ones you can get for that will tell you a laser range finder that will tell you the distance of stuff. But this goes back to some NASA missions with the moon landing and that mirror that they put on the moon. So they put a big reflector on the moon when they went there, and they did go there. I don't subscribe to that conspiracy theory. The Van Allen radiation belts are easily shielded by electromagnetic shielding technology and capacitors, and a lot of other technologies that really can and do shield the Van Allen radiation belts, and we can venture out beyond them. That was one of the scientific bullshit arguments that a lot of people find when they first start researching that. But they put a reflector on the moon, and then they shined a laser on it. They can spot a laser to the moon, and then it bounces off that reflector, and then they measure that time it takes for that laser to go, and then they use that for the laser range finding. Based on the time that it takes, they can literally count the amount of wavelengths that it took for that laser to get to the moon, to that reflector, and back. And they use those wavelengths, measuring and counting those wavelengths and the time it takes, to literally measure distance. And that's how distances are kind of measured. So it's interesting that all the distances between objects are kind of measured by how many the structures of light between them. literally we measure. Their best way of in physics to measure, make a measurement of what space is to use frequencies of light to measure that space-time. So it's interesting, our whole notion of what space is and what space-time is and connectivity and trying to break free of that. In ways that we measure things. So one of these ideas is that inside the atoms of the whatever you're trying to measure, there's these quantum effects which kind of, you don't know the exact position of these things quantum mechanically, because they could really be, a little bit off from, even though these wavelengths are interacting with this, there's still this, uncertainty in your measurement, and as always, you can't measure it with any more precision than, the quantum certainty of where these electrons and atoms are, and the reflector molecules of the atoms of, the ions in the atoms on this reflector here, which are interacting with our laser as we shine laser on it from Earth. So it's a kind of what the next thing I was going to say is that if you were to alter the surface structure, the ability of this laser to, where it is in space-time, can you actually account for it move? Can you cause it to move physically? If you can, basically, like the way that everything knows its position in space is based on these interactions of light. If you really think about it, everything kind of knows where everything else is based on the light that's in the electric magnetic fields that interact at all times, kind of like holding it all together. So if you're able to alter that on some kind of quantum level by, I believe, entanglement, or getting using the right materials or the right surfaces and the right optics, so that you're able to trick everything and to knowing where exactly you are. You can almost like trick the light waves, trick the rest of the universe into knowing exactly where you are within the realm of things, if you just can manipulate the physical fields of how these measurements occur and identify on the quantum level. That's sort of the idea, and I wish I had better words to describe it or explain it, but again, if I used better words, most people wouldn't understand the words except for the scientists. So this is kind of where we try to bridge that gap and that boundary between, the limits of science and bringing that to a bigger audience, so that more people can engage with this. And we're doing the first public outreach publicly. There's lots of groups that have been doing anti-gravity and stuff, but we're like the first group that's actually, doing it, publicly and making it all inclusive. Again, we teamed up with a couple other labs, including, Falcon Space, who down in New Jersey, who are doing, a lot of historical anti-gravity experiments and stuff. But again, in the future, I'm really trying to expand that network and get more serious labs and more serious people on board with the APEC, into our APEC conference, and also to our laboratory capabilities, because I want to start moving that into quantum optics. And I'd love to go down to, I'm going to make it at some point, make a field trip out to some of these universities that I've been researching, and these libraries as well, to try and do some research on here soon this year. I'm planning a trip to go and do some research and get some information and try to do some interviews and whatnot. So if you know anyone or you want to talk, please email me and get in touch with me. Again, thanks for watching. Lots of cool technology going out there. Quantum optics is definitely key. All the key, so like you look at all those key people, like Daniel Shechtman definitely knows his stuff. A lot of the Israeli scientists that, you can also find. So that's another thing. I was talking about Israeli scientists earlier and photonics and stuff. So the Israelis are super into this as well. This is from, again, the Technical University in Israel, Technion, Israel. And these guys are working on polariton exciton condensates, 2 photon excitations. And Again, this is and terahertz radiation sources. So these guys are onto this stuff. They've been onto it since for 8 years now, or 9 years now, since 2012 apparently. So right when I said a lot of this stuff was starting to go into production mainstream, that's like 2012. Early 2000s is when a lot of it was starting. A lot of preliminary research was done into a lot of these things, but it's really, I wonder how far into production it's really gone, and our investigations into the Sal Pays patents continues as we up our abilities to replicate this sort of technology that's described in his patents, and specifically this PZT metallic coating that he talks about with this phase condensate with a pulsed current source. Again, the same kind of ideas going on here, except this is a different type of setup. The insulating core with this PZT metallic coating material on the outside. There's been a lot of different interesting effects that we've seen in layered materials. So graphene, for example, with superconductors or perovskites superconductor sandwich. Conductor sandwich. So there's different types of sandwiching that they're making now, and doing a lot of very interesting and surprising experiments with, graphene and superconductivity. So magic angle graphene. So they take two sheets of graphene and twist them to each other at the right angle. And when they hit this perfect angle, they become superconducting. That was one thing that came out. There's another, again, these polariton condensates can create, superconducting modes in these structures as well. But then these, the sandwiching a layer of superconductor between two sheets of graphene does some interesting things too. And then sandwiching perovskites between graphene apparently also does some interesting things. So there's a lot of research that's been going on into these layered materials that's been taking place internationally over the last 3-4 years. And you better bet your ass this is directly related to or can be applied to propulsion engineering and space-time metric engineering physics, which is the future of space propulsion and physics propulsion in space. I believe I just can't believe that Elon Musk isn't paying more attention to warp drive physics and the science that's going on here. I don't know if he's I don't know what the deal is there, if he is and just isn't talking about it and saying anything. Maybe this is a big Manhattan project that's going on in secret that we don't even know about, and that's, but anyways, if it was that big of a secret, they wouldn't be wanting us to talk about it in the detail that we do or go into it. So I think that we're pretty much in the clear as far as that goes, because we talk about this stuff a lot, and it's just maybe we're shadow banned, and that's the reason I have 96,000 subscribers, but only 124 people watching this right now. I don't know. Maybe that's a good question. Guys, don't forget to smash that like button. Yes, I know that Veritasium debunked Eric Lathwaite. Yes, I know. Eric Lathwaite was the guy who created the maglev and had some real archaic and classical ideas on gravity. Eric Lathwaite was not the genius of anti-gravity that he thought he was. Eric Lathwaite, right? So Eric Lathwaite, the British electrical engineer, and as you watch that Ronald Evans thing, you'll know about some more about that. So anyways, his unfortunately he did not create anti-gravity, and that it was a little bit harder than that. But it doesn't mean that I've given up hope for anti-gravity, just that it's not going to work under those classical understandings of physics and conventional electronics and electrical engineering. I don't think that we're going to be able to do it with It's obviously not that easy, or if it would have been figured out and we'd have this a long time ago. You know, that's my conclusion, looking through years and years of anti-gravity research that's been done, all declassified, and what the state of the art cutting edge is right now, what they're working on with these skin coatings and these these types of superconductors and these warp drives, these space-time metric. They're called, I don't call them warp drives. They're space-time metric in engineering. And now there's independent labs. That's what we're trying to do, is bring this out to the mainstream with independent science labs and more independent people working on this and building this technology. But again, we don't have the capabilities, I don't think, in our laboratories to do a lot of this stuff. And that's why there needs to be this bridge, or this connection between mainstream science and ufology and the people like us, that what we're trying to do, the engineers and the scientists that are trying to build this. And if we pulled our heads together, again, it's going to take a lot of different disciplines from a lot of different fields to really do this. But if we can do this summer, hopefully I'm going to try and rally some of the troops and get them thinking about these new ideas, get them investigating these sorts of things and looking for them. And if we can do that, that's the seeds will be planted, and I have a feeling that lots of good can come out of this in the future. And this is something positive. And again, there's nothing super conspiratorial about this. This is a safe place to go in 2021 after 1984, when they shut down all conspiracy theories, and I'm not allowed to talk about, you know, anything related to, you know, Bob Lazar or secret government, you know, this or that. And it's just, I don't know. Where do you draw the line? I don't think they're going to draw the line on me when talking about declassified scientific stuff and our pursuit of, you know, scientific knowledge and understanding of gravity and how to beat it and defeat it. I don't think that's going to be a problem. So that's what I'm going to, unfortunately, that's what I think I'm going to focus on for the most of 2021. And hopefully we don't, hopefully that lifts the shadow ban, because that's really what I'm trying to do is one of the things I've noticed is they have keywords, and there's certain things like you don't want to say or talk about, because you'll instantly, I notice when I say certain things, all of a sudden my view count just drops, and also the video freezes up. It kind of gets shaky, and then I'll notice that immediately a tag will pop up on the video that says, you know, warning about misinformation. They want to put the fact, that's when the fact check comes out. Oh, you mentioned something about Dreamland, which I won't call it by its normal name, but you mentioned something about Dreamland, and now we have to slap this on your video so that people know, because it just gets flagged and then it gets put in that. It's just terrible what's going on, how it's being used to censor even good discussion, how good discussion is being censored. It's being used specifically to censor good discussion. I really feel it's a tactic that's used by the intelligence communities as they spread a bunch of bullshit, get everyone all riled up. You know, of course people are going to pay attention to that stuff because it gets you fucking angry because it's so bullshit. You're like, this is so ridiculous. Or some of it's written specifically to identify with the core belief structures of these existing groups already have. So they see it and they're like, oh yeah, this has got to be true. And just, you know, let me share this without even reading the article. And a lot of times it's stuff like that. So anyways, just remember, there's lots of different disinformation out there. It's all about finding better scientists and finding better physics and finding better science, and until we get something that works and get the right team together and the right people together to actually build this. And I'm going to be doing that this summer, going on a field trip to go and recruit many of these people and tell them about what we're doing and try to get interviews with them if at all possible. So yeah, we need new institutions, we need new physics environments to really foster these new ideas and develop them into things. And then we also need better spokespeople for this stuff in the mainstream media so that Joe Rogan can have some real meat and potatoes to sink his teeth into, instead of some Bob Lazar, you know, and some Element 115 that he's got still hidden somewhere, yet he calls out everyone else that's for keeping the truth embargo on disclosure going. Oh yeah, you're blocking, you're providing the truth embargo. You're blocking disclosure. Meanwhile, I have piece of element 115 supposedly that I won't, ever let out or get out of the bag. But I get on Joe Rogan in front of audiences of millions with absolutely nothing to say. Great. This is I don't know. And then I've sort of pigeonholed myself by talking about all this other craziness, and that's prevented me from getting on these academic channels that I really would love to get on and share my ideas with, like again Dr. Brian Keaton, and the Portal with Eric Weinstein, and Garrett Lisi's someone I've I posted his videos on the show on my channel before when I first found his E8 theory, and I've really followed a lot of the stuff that he's done with Clee Irwin, and that group, what is it, the Gravity Research, Quantum Gravity Research? Yeah, Quantum Gravity Research Group. So check those guys out. Check out those other channels. These are the kinds of people that I want to introduce to these technologies and these new ideas and start talking about on these kinds of shows, because we need more smart people working on this. We're never going to convince the stupid people that Bob Lazar is a liar. It's easier to fool someone than it is to convince them they've been fooled. So you're never going to, we're going to waste our time with that one forever. And I bring it up again every now and again because it's such a key part of this whole blockade on the truth movement of, portraying this guy as physics and Area 51 science when, really the field's advanced, so much beyond that. Like in the last 15 years alone, I've watched this field advance, and the information that's come out and the information that's available to us now. We're close. We're closer than ever. We might even have a theory of everything out there already, but the person who is just afraid to publish it because they're afraid to publish it because the venues and it doesn't exist yet, and that's what we want to create. We want to create this environment, this collaborative team effort of people who are open to these ideas and creating a fostering environment for new ideas, but also, a gauntlet where we can dissect and destroy bad ideas, because that needs to happen as well, because sometimes we're wrong. And that's okay. It's all part of being human. Thank you very much. And, I'm going to end this. We're now almost nearing 2 hours. So, yeah, Google is terrible. Their ability to censor information and hide information is totally annoying. And Joe Rogan is just as annoying with his inability to get better guests and better researchers and better information. So anyways, yes, please like the video and sub. And again, hopefully I've given you guys some good information. And we're giving George Knapp hell, just know that. The Bob Lazar story is completely, it's got about a year left. Time's on our side as far as the truth goes. And it's only going to be a matter of time before that. That trapdoor floor falls out, and we better have our ducks in a row to catch the... to fill the vacuum that's going to emerge when Bob Lazar, disappears off that scene. There's a vacuum of information, and we need to work on filling that. And I have so much great content. Again, we're looking for a 3D CAD guy. I'm looking for also an animator who does video animation, and anyone who, someone who knows like Blender, software Blender. Really great software for... No, that's a Blender, literal Blender. But there's a software called Blender, which this is what a lot of the pro animators use to draw and build animations and stuff. This would be, if you're young and looking for a career, I would buy this software and start trying to learn this. If you're good at art and good at making stuff. You could make quite a lot of money and have a good career, a really solid career ahead of you, if you learn Blender and can do Blender. Because if I could get a Blender artist on our team, man, it would just be over. We'd be doing physics, models and the most insane graphics, and it would just be over. I mean, the stuff that we could do, the amount of content that we have, and the amount of research that we need to make into videos. So I can't even keep up. I just do like 2-hour live streams where I just dump data and information on stuff a lot of times, and then I need to really focus. I have a lot of the equipment now. I have a lot of the focus. I got a script that I'm working on again, and but I need some help with animators and some other stuff so that we can get. Because I really want to make this. I really want to turn this channel into I need to get a media company, basically a media company who believes in this message of using science to bring humanity forward and really bring UFO disclosure to a whole nother level. And in order to do that, I need a team. I can't do it by myself, man. I've been trying, but I need more media people. And if you're good at this stuff, you want to get involved, please team up, link up, connect, and join up with me, because we have some great stuff coming up. Some just a never-ending. I mean, physics and science is a never-ending stream of content to report on and connections to be made. Yes. So again, thank you all for watching. This has been a production of Alien Scientist News. Let me, there we are. So thank you all again. Smash that like button. And I appreciate your time and I appreciate all the people that joined us in the live stream and the comments too. Thank you for some great tip-offs and some information and stuff. Again, we're gonna be doing it this year. Hopefully, we can get some serious headway on UFO disclosure and the science. So, why did this happen? Did they just drop out a whole section of my video? Look at this. This just happened on my live stream. Look at this big dropout gap. They cut out from 5:30 to 5:40 p.m. They cut out a 10-minute block of my video. I'm going to go back and see what I discussed right then. All right, I'm going to end this stream, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember, conspiracies are real, and there's tons of fake ones out there to hide the real ones. So do your research. Be smart. And be skeptical, and don't believe everything I say either. So, thanks. Do your own research. May the truth prevail.